Hey guys, welcome to the first ever Practical 30 Live, the show where I bring on subject matter experts to take a deeper dive into health topics. I'm Dr. Leo Moore, also known as the Practical M.D. I'm excited because tonight I'll be joined by my colleague and friend, Dr. Joy Baker, as we'll be discussing WAPs and WABs. So just in case some don't know what a WAP is a wet ass pussy, and a WAB is a wet ass butt or wet ass bussy, as some would say, or the equivalent of a male pussy. So we're gonna have a real conversation tonight. I'm excited. So I'm going to share a little bit about Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker and I went to medical school together. Dr. Joy Baker is a board certified general obstetrician and gynecologist at Wellstar West Georgia Medical Center in LaGrange, Georgia. She has experience working in both urban and rural communities over the past 10 years after completing her medical school and residency training with honors at the Morehouse School of Medicine and Grady Health Center. Dr. Baker has been a recipient of numerous awards, to include Georgia Top Docs 2020, Atlanta Magazine's 2017 Top Doctors Feature Physician, Press Ganey Top Patient Satisfaction Award, Physician Community Service Award, Grady Health Foundation's Next Generation Healer Award, and 2 Arnold P. Gold Foundation Awards for Humanism in Medicine, and many other. Let's go ahead and bring Dr. Joy on and get this conversation started.
Hello. Hey, Dr. Leo.
Hey, Dr. Joy. It's nice to see you.
It's good to see you too. How is the weather over there on the whole other side of the country?
It's hot and smoky, unfortunately, with all the fires. I mean, you know, you can barely see the sky for all the smoke. So, but we're holding up as we can. How's the weather on the East Coast?
It's humid. It hasn't been that bad. You know, normally it's super hot in Georgia, but right now it's not too bad. So I am so excited to be having this conversation. I think it's well overdue. And I think we need to be talking about these things. So when you first asked me about this, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. So I'm excited to get started.
I'm super excited as well. When I thought of doing this show, you were the first person that came to mind to do this show with. Because
wait. When you thought of this show, I was the first person that came to mind. Why? You have do tell.
Because I knew you would have a real conversation with me. I knew that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we all know I like to have real conversations with my patients on a daily basis. I think it's something that we as women need to own, our sexual health. And so I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So, Dr. Joy, I'm going to ask you the first question. Let's get past the risque lyrics to a deeper conversation. Why do you think there was so much controversy around this song, around WAPs?
I think that for a very long time, that patriarchal and misogynistic behavior has been tolerated within within our society in general, but certainly within hip hop culture for sure. Like there have been some male artists who have been saying some even more ratchet things that haven't really been called to the carpet. But when female rappers started to do it, it became like a whole ordeal. And I think men have been profiting off of sex and off of portraying women as a sex object for a very long time. And these girls decided to take this into their own hands and profit off of their own sexuality. And I think that for whatever reason, it scandalized us. And I think because we really think of women as that they should be virginal and all these sorts of things. But clearly we know, you and I know, because we see patients on a daily basis who are dealing with sexually transmitted infections, dealing with sexual dysfunction. We know that sex is taking place. And so I think that it's important to have these conversations so that people are educated and they understand how to protect themselves and how to have an enjoyable sex life. I mean, the data on this is extensive and it's very clear that having an enjoyable sex life actually extends your life. So, we want to live. Can we live?
Can we live? I think that's a very important point that you made about
Can they
sex.
live?
Sex is healthy. Sex is natural. You know, our patients and people in general should be enjoying a healthy and safe sex life. You know, it's, as you said, it extends our lives. Actually, having that release of testosterone helps prolong a man's life as well. So, you know, when we have to be thinking about how to cultivate a culture where it's not so taboo to talk about these things, and be clear that you are enjoying healthy sex.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, on my YouTube channel, I put out a video on sex for younger women. And I think, you know, for me, and I said this in my video, I said, for me, sex is best enjoyed in a committed relationship. But how many me's are there out there? Just one. I am the only me. So I get to decide what's good for me. And what's good for me may not be good for everybody else. And what I desire and what I like might not be what everybody else does. And so my goal really is to just be open to learning from people and understanding where they are and trying to meet them there and give them education so that they're safe and that they're healthy. And so that's really our goal as healthcare providers, is not to tell people what they shouldn't be doing or who you shouldn't be doing it with, but really to make sure that you understand risks and benefits and that you can move in and navigate in a way that's healthy for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd be on the same exact page. I mean, we both Morehouse School of Medicine alumni. This is what we were taught. This is a part of the bread and butter, of what we do and of who we are in medicine, right?
Right.
So I think one of the themes that I want to cover tonight is the importance of just being open to learning how to take the best care of your body, and to enjoy your sex life to the max. So why don't we get into a question about female reproductive organs? So why are female reproductive organs and the normal fun of them such a taboo topic?
I think that for whatever reason, there just wasn't a whole lot known. And if you just go back, I'm a real big history buff, and I really like to read history and to study history. And if you look at ancient civilizations, women who were too in tune with their with their bodies, or who were too in tune with their minds, and who really knew what they wanted and were bold about going after that, were always considered something bad. They were burned at the stake as witches. They were drowned as being wise women. And I think that we have a history in the world itself as denouncing women who are strong and who really take ownership of their bodies and of their power. And so I remember growing up as a little girl in the South, if even things as simple as the menstrual cycle, you really weren't told anything about it. You were handed some sanitary napkins and told, only fast girls wear tampons, and, just all kinds of stuff that just really didn't make a lot of sense. And what we're seeing now is the aftermath of that lack of education. So we're seeing such high numbers of sexually transmitted infections. We're seeing that people are not really able to negotiate for themselves when it comes to moving in sexual arenas. And I think that that's really sad. And, people who know me know that I really am a woman of faith. And the Bible says that people perish from a lack of knowledge, not because they had sex with so-and-so, but from a lack of knowledge. So I think we have to be very proactive about putting that knowledge out there and making sure that people understand their bodies, they understand the function of their bodies, and that we, are not afraid to talk about it. We have to be able to talk about it. There is nothing gross or disgusting or, weird about our bodies. They're fearfully and wonderfully made, and we need to be able to discuss their function and discuss how to keep them healthy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree. So I have to ask, why are women not supposed to enjoy or desire sex?
I really don't know. I think that we're supposed to stay little girls for a long time. I mean, I don't know. It kind of blows my mind, because in order for, our partners to enjoy sex, we probably need to be enjoying it too. And it seems like since the beginning of time, sex was something that only men are supposed to enjoy, you know. And I don't really understand that, because if the woman is not pleased and she's not enjoying sex, then it's less enjoyable for her partner, whether that be male, female, or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just think that it's kind of a taboo subject, that we're taught that we're not supposed to enjoy sex or desire sex, or pursue sex. And I feel like that at this point in time, we need to decide what's good for us, and we need to pursue that. And whether that's who you choose to partner with, if you choose a long-term committed relationship, like I'm married, but whatever that is, you need to do it safely and in a way that's healthy for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Whether it's one partner or many partners, safe and enjoyable. Let's see. How do women naturally achieve a WAP? Because I'm sure that after seeing the video, hearing that acronym, they want to know, like, how do women naturally achieve a WAP?
So let me just say, when I first heard this song, I was just like, like, whoa. And so I'm still probably a little whoa if I hear the real version with all the words in there. And I'll be honest, the P word is not my favorite. I really don't like it. I teach my patients that we don't say that. We say vagina, or we say, but that is a slang term that most people use. Let's just be honest. So we have to be able to kind of think about that in layman's terms. We got to be able to talk about it. But I think it's important that we know the true names of our body parts, and we know how they function. I think that's very important. So I have a video on learning your lady parts, and I think every woman should know what her lady parts are actually called, so that she doesn't show up in the gynecologist's office saying, oh, my pussy stinks. That's just, I mean, you ought to be able to talk a little bit better than that. But anyway, that's an aside. Let's get back to the question I was asked. And that is that women produce moisture from a number of glands in the vaginal area. And so we have several sets of glands, mainly the Bartholin gland, that produces vaginal moisture. And that helps the vagina become lubricated when a woman is sexually aroused. In addition, we have our cervix, the opening to the uterus that's way in the back of the vagina, that also produces mucus. And that's its only job, really, is to produce mucus. And so that allows for some vaginal lubricant production. And then we have glands that are close to our urethra that also keep the vaginal area lubricated. And if a woman is healthy and she has undergone puberty, there should be, adequate amount of moisture in the vaginal canal until we reach menopause, which in the United States is an average age of 51.
Yes. Yes. So let's see. Well, what might make it difficult for a woman to achieve a WAP then? Now that we know, about the anatomy that's there, what might make it difficult for them to actually?
Oh my gosh, there's a laundry list of things, really, Dr. Leo. So one of the things, like I like to kind of look at it in terms of premenopausal women versus postmenopausal women, because there is definitely a huge difference in the number of hormones or in the level of hormones that are being produced. And so in the premenopausal woman, we're always going to be thinking about medications. So sometimes like antidepressants, even antihistamines, like allergy medications, can cause not only your sinuses to dry up, but they can cause your WAP to dry up too. So you have to think about that. If a woman is pregnant or postpartum and her hormones are kind of off, or she's breastfeeding, that also can cause the vaginal tissue to not produce enough lubricant, and it can cause painful intercourse as well. Women who are undergoing chemo or radiation treatments, can definitely have experienced some vaginal dryness and painful intercourse. There are just lots of reasons, really. And then once we hit that menopausal period and hormones start to really decrease, then, without that estrogen that helps to produce that vaginal moisture and to keep the vaginal tissues plump and moist, we are really at a risk for having vaginal dryness and painful intercourse. And what really happens with this, Dr. Leo, is I'll be almost done, ready to walk out of the room, and the woman will say, I have one more thing I just wanted to ask you about.
The doorknob question.
The doorknob question. That's Jen Gunter refers to it as the doorknob question. I thought that was very appropriate. And it's like, one more thing. I just wanted to ask if this is normal. I was thinking it's because of my older age or whatever, or I just had a baby and I'm trying to get back into the swing of things with my partner, and it's just not going down the way that I think it should be. And so there's this embarrassment, this timidity about asking about that, which I think that should be your chief complaint. If you come in and you're having trouble and experiencing painful intercourse, but I tell you, it's usually the last thing. And it's gotten to the point where I just kind of really I want women to feel empowered. So I just ask, is everything going okay in terms of your sex life? How are things going? Is there anything that you wish were better or different? Because there are often ways to help women achieve vaginal lubrication and have less painful sex. And speaking of painful sex, there are a whole category of women who have chronic pelvic pain. And some of the treatments that we use for chronic pelvic pain, like Lubricant, for instance, for endometriosis, can also really cause a lot of vaginal dryness. So there are a multitude of reasons why. And if you are having difficulty establishing the WAP, you definitely want to talk to your gynecologist.
So when they talk to their gynecologist, I'm just curious, what type of workup, what can they expect when they go and talk to a gynecologist about difficulty achieving a lubricated vagina?
So if they're having some difficulty, one thing that I usually always like to do is to get a really good history. So just to understand where they are, because I will be honest that a lot of sexual dysfunction in women can be both hormonal and mental and emotional. So we have to really kind of look at both of those, because you're not just a pelvis walking around, you're an entire person with a whole life. And so I really like to get good history. Just case in point, I remember a few years ago, I saw a woman who was having really painful intercourse and, was saying that she had this horrible vaginal dryness. And I did all of this workup, hormonal panels and other labs, and we're checking for this and checking for that and running her list of medications, and even so far as to do a diagnostic laparoscopy, where we go into the operating room and put a woman to sleep and look down in the pelvis with a camera just to see if something is going on with her pelvic organs, because we don't really see anything on ultrasound or other imaging studies. So I did all of that. And finally, I just sat down one day and had a really in-depth conversation with her about how she felt about her partner. And that's where the floodgates opened. And I tell you, we talked about what she deserved and what she needed. And she went out and got that with a new partner. Pelvic pain was gone. Never heard from her again. So I think that we have to be open to really exploring, like, what do we really think the problem is? Is it our medication? Is it a physical problem? Are we having difficulty with hormonal imbalance? Or is it just that we have emotionally checked out of this relationship? Or we've had something in our past that makes sex difficult or painful for us, where it's difficult for us to mentally take ourselves to that place of arousal. So we have to really explore those things. And I think that it's really important to be to feel open when you are talking to your healthcare provider, to be able to discuss these things and not have any shame in it. It's no shame in it. If I start having a problem, I'm definitely going to see Dr. Harbison and get it worked out quickly. So we want to that we're feeling comfortable and confident, owning the fact that we deserve to have every good thing in life, including good sex.
And I mean, I also think that our providers need to be in a place where they can have those conversations openly as well. But sometimes it takes us as patients, you know, to actually say, I am having this issue, to push to have that conversation. So I definitely think there's some work on the provider side to be done, but the more confident and clear that the person is about what's going on with their body and forthright about talking about it, the more likely it is to be addressed, treated, and they can get back to enjoying sex.
For sure. And I really appreciate the training that I got at Morehouse School of Medicine, both for medical school and residency, because we all know, we've all worked with Dr. Wimberly, who is the queen of sexual health questionnaires. And that is part of your history and physical exam. You've got to ask those questions. You need to know what your patient is into, what they're practicing, who they're partnered with, how many partners in the last 12 months. So these are things that I was trained to ask about. And, you know, one of my attendings in residency, Dr. Bright, would always say, well, how do you know that she's not having anal intercourse? Or how do you know that this is not going on, or that's not happening? Did you ask her? And I thought, oh my gosh, I have to ask this. But really, as I really got into practice, I found that it was very beneficial to ask these questions and to, you know, really seek out your patients and get that information from them so that you know what's going on. And so speaking of anal sex, because that was the one thing that he would always say, well, do you know she's having, you know, vaginal, oral, or anal? Well, I started to learn that we have to ask those questions because people are doing a variety of things in behind closed doors, and we need, or sometimes not behind closed doors, but we need to know what they're doing so that we can help them live a healthier lifestyle. So when you asked me about this, Dr. Leo, I was just like, WAB. I never really considered it. One, because I don't take care of men. And two, I was just like, I never thought about it. Like, how, you know, wow. So not only does this apply to men, though, I think it also applies to women, because both men and women are into anal sex these days, and we hear a lot about it. And so I think that it's important that both men sleeping with men and women who are partnered with men or other women, that we all are kind of aware of this whole anal sex thing that's going on, and that we know how to protect ourselves. So, you know, how, I guess maybe the place to start is for people to really understand the anatomy down there. So we talked about the glands in the vagina, but what about in the anus? Because I haven't, you know, I haven't really done a whole lot of rectal exams, honestly. As a gynecologist, we only really do one if I need to. So how do you counsel your patients when you're talking about men who are sleeping with men, or even women who are having anal sex?
This is a really important topic to talk about, because as you mentioned, both men and women are engaging in anal sex. And I think because there's not usually as much discussion about how to get a WAB, or, you know, a wet ass pussy or butt, like, because there's not as much conversation about anal sex and how to lubricate properly and to enjoy yourself, and that actually ends up putting people at risk for hurting themselves, you know. So that's why I thought it was really timely for us to not only talk about WAPs, but to also talk about WABs. So I wanted to start with anatomy, and you know, when I think anatomy, I go back to my netters. So
oh my God, you have your netters? Wow, you laughing. Let me just show y'all. I got mine.
Your netters is a little older than mine, but that's okay.
But for real, I still got my netters. So that's what's up.
So that was the first thought. So I'm going to actually bring my netters close up here. So up here at the top, which I'm orienting myself. So here you have your rectum here, coming off of the sigmoid colon. So this is part of the large intestine coming down. And then as we go down, which I'm not going down straight, you then have your anal canal, which is further down here, right now here, your anal canal. And in your anal canal, right next to it is your anal glands. You have glands that actually produce mucus, and that mucus comes into the anal canal, and that's really there to help stool come out of the anal opening, which is right down here. You'll also notice that there are muscles here, right? So this is your internal sphincter and your external sphincter. And those sphincters really serve the purpose of ensuring that you don't have incontinence. They hold the stool in until you're ready to defecate. So one thing I want to mention is that the rectum itself doesn't produce a lot of mucus. The only area that's really producing mucus is in that anal canal. And because there's so little mucus being produced, it's important that when you're having anal sex, that you lubricate extensively, because the only area is receiving some lubrication. And even in that area, it's not enough to prevent you from developing friction. And with friction comes heat, right? And with heat, we can break down the cells in that area, leading to damage and tearing.
Mm-hmm.
So whether a man or woman, if you're having anal sex, the most important thing to achieve a WAB is to ensure that you are lubricating properly. One important thing about lubrication that I want to mention is that certain lubricants have been found to cause the cells that are in the rectum and cells that are actually in the vagina as well to die and to slough off. And when those cells slough off, it increases the risk that you're going to have bleeding, that you may have a tear in the anus or in the rectal area. It increases your risk for infection as well. You want to think about those cells that are there as a barrier that's like keeping your fortress intact. And if there is a break there, then it allows fecal matter and STDs even to get into your bloodstream and into your body. So in order to keep that fortress strong, you want to ensure that you're using the right types of lubricant. So no oils, no Crisco or things of that nature. One thing that we also found is that there are four different ingredients, which Dr. Joy and I will share. 4 different ingredients that also increase the risk that those lubes containing those ingredients will break down that cell layer, that epithelial layer in the rectum and in the anus.
And it can cause really bad irritation and some reactions. And there was one in particular that I found in my study that actually was helping HIV virus replicate. Like, it actually promoted replication of HIV virus. And so we certainly don't want to be using that as a lube. And I think that was minoxidil 9. So, and that actually happens to be in a very popular lube that I see a lot of women talking about, which is Astroglide. And it was actually something I thought Astroglide was great. And I was reading about it and I was like, oh my gosh, I definitely need to I have a lube list. So if you come to me and you're having trouble establishing the WAP, I have a lube list that you can use. And so I'm going to have to take that off my list now. I'm really a little bit concerned about that. So you definitely want to avoid them. And we're going to put together a comprehensive list for you guys, and we will share that on our respective pages. But certainly you want to be paying attention to what's in your lube. So Dr. Leo, like, what type of lube do you generally recommend?
So I generally recommend silicone-based lubes specifically for anal sex, because you need a lube that's viscous. You need it to be thick. And so when you choose a thicker lube, it'll last longer. It'll cut down on the amount of heat and friction causing damage to those cells. And silicone lubes have not been shown to break down the cells, nor do they break down condoms. So silicone-based lubes are tried and true, and they are my go-to. And so some of the brands that I tend to think of are Wet, Swiss Navy. There are a ton of silicone-based lubes, but I tend to stay there because what I don't want to happen is for the lube to dry out while the two are engaging, and then to increase the risk of a tear or of a break or, any pain during sex?
Well, I totally agree because silicone lubes are usually safe for women who are trying to conceive. They tend to be sperm friendly. They coat the vaginal walls or the anal walls, and that kind of stays in place. And so, it lasts longer. It also, if are trying to be in the shower, the pool, wherever, is what it doesn't. It doesn't dry up because you're in water. So it's waterproof. You can get in there and do whatever you need to do. So while you're engaged and enjoying, I think silicone is a great way to go. And it was really neat that you mentioned about the abrasions and tearing in the cells, because that can certainly happen for my women who are postpartum, women who are postmenopausal. And so anytime you have a thinning of the vaginal cells, then you have to be concerned about whether or not there are abrasions in the vagina through which we can have a higher risk of infection. Not only bacterial vaginosis or yeast, but also gonorrhea, chlamydia, HIV, syphilis. And so we have to be concerned about lubricant and ensuring that people are using it safely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also tend to ask my patients what types of lubes they're using. They may know of new silicone-based lubes and what their experiences are. I think that's all also a part of pleasure, and as you were discussing earlier, just the importance of leading with pleasure to make sure that people are having an enjoyable experience while we're also talking about the ways to protect themselves. So with my sexual history taking, I tend to start with, tell me about your sex life. Are you enjoying sex? Because if we can start there, then we can at least level set for where we want to go with that conversation about how we can optimize the enjoyment that you're having and also the safety.
Right, absolutely. So, I guess suffice it to say that if we're only depending on the anal glands for moisture, that is probably inadequate. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah.
I
So we need
100% agree.
we need that lube, and I think that it's just really important. Even if you're using toys or experimenting, you really need to make sure that if you're doing anal experimentation or anal intercourse, that you have appropriate amount of lube to prevent damage and also to reduce your risk of infection. So,
One other thing I wanted to mention. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, love the lube, love the lube.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing I wanted to mention that's important, because I've had many men ask me, can a man get wet? Can a man create his own natural lubricant? And, what I say to them is even the cells that are in the rectum can create like a little bit of mucus, and the cells in that anal canal can create a little bit more, but it's not enough to fully lubricate the area. I'll also mention that saliva is not a good lubricant at all.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I think that we are, unfortunately, our society is exposed to a lot of pornography. And if that's your thing, no shade, but I think there are some things that go on in some of those videos that just absolutely in real life should not be taking place. I mean, they say don't try this at home. The saliva thing is not what you want. So certainly a real silicone-based lube is what you want. And the average person in the United States has been exposed to pornography by age 8. So we have kids that are really growing up thinking that these are real life things. It's supposed to be for entertainment purposes only. It's not what you really want to do in your real life. So thank you for bringing that up. Saliva is not it.
Saliva also can transmit STDs, namely gonorrhea. So we have to also remember that, and those who are using saliva, they could be directly transferring that saliva with gonorrhea from the mouth directly into the anus and infecting that person. So,
we don't want that. We want to have enjoyable experience that does not leave us in the doctor's office a week or two later getting IM injections for gonorrhea. That's not what we came for.
It's not what we came for, but if you end up there, we're going to take great care of you. We will make
We
sure you
will
get your
take good care of you. If you can avoid it, please do.
But yeah, so let's see. Why don't we go ahead and open it up to the audience for some questions?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to get some questions from you guys.
Let's see. All right. So coconut oil has been promoted as good for anal sex for those who enjoy condomless sex. Is it healthy or unhealthy for your WAB? So one of the things that I will say about oils is that they heat up very quickly. And so my concern around coconut oil is that although it may not be painful in the moment, that coconut oil, once it heats up to a certain point, it could definitely damage those cells more. So one of the things that is important about lubricants that you find in stores is that, you know, they're testing the temperatures and things of that nature as well in order to ensure that it's going to be safe for the body. So I would actually say that coconut oil is unhealthy, and I wouldn't recommend coconut oil when there are lubes that have been tested for thermoregulation.
Yeah, and I would say that coconut oils, you can really, if you're going to be giving like sensual massage or something like that, other body parts are fine. But when it actually comes down to the nitty gritty of the intercourse, a silicone-based lube is the way to go.
Yeah, I completely agree, because that coconut oil does warm up very quickly, right? So you rub that together and it's really nice for a massage and for some foreplay. And then when you're ready, then you switch over to the lube.
Right. So yeah. What other questions do you guys have? I know you have questions. Don't be afraid to ask. So, okay, Nicole, Vic. So no, they actually have not stopped putting the Minoxidil 9 and stuff. So it really is up to us as consumers to really look at that lubricant, look at the ingredients that are included, and make wise choices. So, you know, be careful of that because it is still out there.
What's a good lube? So as we stated, we want to stay with silicone-based lubes as much as possible. So, you know, wet. I also mentioned Swiss Navy, but there are a host of silicone-based lubes. I think it's just staying with that type of lube because it's good for the cells and it's also good for condoms. It won't break down the condom.
And for women, like in your regular drugstore, you can find Replens, which is a silicone-based lubricant. So if you're in the CVS or Walgreens or whatever, that's usually something that you can quickly find that is a silicone-based lubricant. Okay, so LaDonna has a question about difference between lubricants versus moisturizers. So there are lots of different moisturizers, vaginal moisturizers. So you may see things like there are Vagisil moisturizers. Replens is actually a lubricant and a moisturizer, so you get a little bit more bang for your buck. And so we want vaginal moisture. And that can be achieved a couple of ways, not only with lubricant, but also with, say, vaginal estrogens, or with the drug Osphena, which helps to restore vaginal moisture and to restore the vaginal tissue to its normal thickness and plumpness. So there are ways to definitely achieve vaginal moisture after menopause or after certain like chemotherapy treatments. There are medically, you know, there are some medications that we can prescribe to achieve vaginal moisture. Lubricant is really for the act of sexual pleasure. So we're really looking for that for intercourse more so. Some women do use lubricants though, because after a baby or after menopause, they may be feeling really dry and irritated to the point where they're physically uncomfortable, like they have, you know, sand in their underwear or whatever. And so may quickly use lubricants, but that's not really what lubricants are designed for. And so they're designed to reduce friction. And so if you're having like a long-term problem with moisture and it's not really just for intercourse, then you may want to talk to your gynecologist about some hormonal therapy for the vagina. And vaginal estrogens are very safe and can be used by the vast majority of women with no problems. Thanks for tuning in.
So Lizana was, oh, sorry.
I was telling you, Lizana was a nurse in one of my rotations that I did as a fourth-year medical student. So I've known her for years. She
was also a nurse in one of my rotations in fourth year.
Did you go to
Georgia? Yeah.
Calhoun. Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Calhoun, Georgia.
Yeah. So LaDonna, what's up, girl? Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for joining us, LaDonna. LaDonna's my Facebook friend, just so you know.
She's my friend too. She was my Facebook friend first. I just want to say.
You're right.
So,
you're right. You win.
Well, that just means I'm older than you. You know, age before beauty, right?
But black don't crack. So
that's right. That's right. So yeah, and I think that that's something that for me has come with age and with confidence, being able to have these conversations, because I remember just being absolutely mortified when I was told, okay, you have to take a sexual health and you have to talk to patients about this. And, you know, I grew up, I grew up in church and I just, it would make me blush to talk about this. But now I think it's such a very necessary part. And I think that's why women come to the gynecologist, is to get help with these sorts of issues. And so if I'm not able to talk about it, who can talk about it? You know, so it really, and it really helped me in my own relationship to be able to be open and honest about what my needs are and what things are going on, and to really continue to explore that and to help other women explore that. I had a call once about a woman saying, you know, I'm having a really hard time achieving orgasm. And so I asked, I said, well, are you able to achieve orgasm when it's just you, you know, through masturbation? And she said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, then you have to talk about what your needs are, because if you can achieve orgasm on your own, then you should be able to achieve orgasm with your partner. And it was like a whole world opened up. And she's like, oh, I should talk about that. And I'm like, yeah, you have to talk about that, because that's creating a problem in your relationship. So I think that just having that ability to be open and honest is so important. So guys, throw out some more questions. We've still got some time and we would love to talk about this with you.
So one thing I wanted to say, I think it's really important, you know, for everyone to be able to communicate comfortably with their partner about their needs, about what they enjoy during sex, you know, and for that partner, whoever they are, you know, and however it may be, to be supportive of that, so that way they can get the most out of the sexual experience, you know. And if a person is not getting that from their partner, they're probably with the wrong person, you know. And I know that that's not an easy thing to talk about, but sex is natural, it's healthy, it's something that people should be enjoying, you know, and I think it's one of many things that should be also centered in those interactions in that relationship.
Absolutely. It really needs to be a conversation that you guys have. And so, you know, she's like, well, how do I open this conversation? I said, well, I think that you should say some things like, I really love it when you touch here, or I really enjoy this that you do. And just kind of doing some coaching without really demeaning or degrading the partner to get the experience to where you need it to be. And I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if you can't have that conversation, or you're concerned that there'll be, you know, such a degree of offense that the partner will no longer be interested, then that's probably not a good look for you. You may need to explore other options. So,
well, one thing I'm going to put out there for the single folks who may be on apps and, you know, you're dating or you're looking for a random hookup. I think being able to have a conversation on that app about what it is that you want, what you're looking for in that hookup, you know, gives you the space and the comfort to name what you want before you're in person. we know that during COVID-19, before COVID-19 and after COVID-19, folks are going to be hooking up, right? So how do we help people feel that their needs are being met even until they get to that relationship? And I think one way in the digital age is to be able to name what you want. What are you into? What do you like? And to see if that actually meshes before you get there with that person. And in addition, because I think this is important, in addition to have that conversation about how to stay safe, how do you play and how do you protect yourself? All of that should be a conversation, and it's easier to have from a distance.
For sure. And I think that, learning to navigate those conversations are part of becoming mature. And, I think that we all kind of figure out what works for us. But I just, for me, I did not really bloom until I really got into a relationship where I felt safe and I felt really comfortable and I was able to talk about these things. And I thought, oh, wow, this is where it's at right here, because I'm able to really be intimate and have a sense of intimacy with this particular person. So I went ahead and got the ring put on it because I was just like, this is it. This is how you do it. So I think that everybody has a little bit different feel. Everybody has some different needs, but whatever that need is, you got to be able to name it. And if you can name it, like they say it in Baptist churches, if you can name it, you can claim it. So own what it is that you need and be able to talk about it.
Yep. And don't be ashamed, because I guarantee you the person's going to name what they need. And so let's see. So what can I do to keep my vagina consistently wet during sex? Dr. Joy?
So this is definitely a job for super lube, super silicone-based lube, because women have kind of, they will have excretions of lubricant from the Bartholin gland, generally during sexual pleasure or sexual arousal. So those glands will push out moisture, but after a while, that moisture kind of starts to die off until the gland is able to produce more moisture and then release it again. And so depending on where a woman is in her state of sexual arousal, you may have different amounts of lubricant available in the vaginal canal. So if you're really trying to, go for long periods of time, or maybe you've already experienced orgasm and you notice that moisture kind of just really dies down, then a silicone-based lube is certainly the way to go.
Yes, let's normalize lube use, in both vaginal and anal sex. I completely agree.
For sure. So, okay, I love this question. So also, can the myth be expelled or broken down to whether or not squirting, or is it pee? And really, you may have a little bit of both. It just depends. So depending on the integrity of your pelvic floor, sometimes with orgasm, women actually can leak a little bit of urine out. But also, those glands can contract suddenly and push out a large amount of moisture at one time. So certainly that whole squirting phenomenon that you hear whispered about can certainly occur, and as could bladder leakage, depending on how good your pelvic floor muscles are. Great question. Thanks for asking that.
How do we normalize the conversation to create a safe space with either partners or sexual partners to have safer, more fulfilling intimacy? Dr. Joy, I'll let you start and then I'll pick up.
I think that, to be honest, if I had my choice, everybody would be educated about this from childhood. They would know about their reproductive organs. They would understand how they work. They would be given an education about the fact that sex is a natural part of life, that it is used for reproduction, but also for pleasure, and that we should feel okay in our own skin. I think that's really the number one way to start normalizing conversation about sex in our bodies. And one of the stories my mom loves to tell when she's trying to embarrass me is that when I was probably about 2 or 3, she would keep our pastor's son sometimes on the weekends, and she's giving him a bath. And I was just kind of like mesmerized, like, what is that? And she said, well, that's a penis, and boys have a penis and girls have a vagina. And so I was really young. So I immediately ran up to my dad and I said, do you have a penis, Daddy? And he was just like, oh my God, like, what are you teaching our child? And and he said, well, yes, I do, but you don't go around asking people that. And the question I have now as an adult is, why not? I mean, now we know, I know that men have a penis, women have a vagina, but it's like, why is it not safe for me to ask the people that are in my village and in my community about sex? And so I think that that's something that I always remember. And then, of course, when the pastor came to pick his son up, I asked him too about whether or not he had a penis. So it's just kind of one of those things. And as a child, I was fearless because I didn't know that I should be ashamed of my sexual organs. I didn't know that other people should be ashamed of their sexual organs. And so I think that it really starts in teaching your children to appreciate their body, to understand how it works, and, to really feel comfortable in their own skin, to feel comfortable going to those adults that are a part of their village who they can trust to ask questions and be able to get some straight answers, and not just, hey, don't worry about that. You don't need to know about the birds and the bees until you're 30 or whatever. We have to teach them because society is teaching them. They're seeing it on the internet. They're seeing it on phones. They're seeing, things on YouTube that they really don't have the foundation to process. And so, then everything is kind of hush hush and low key, but it is certainly going down. I mean, I'm a OBGYN. I see girls 15, 16, 17, probably greater than 50% of my pregnant patients are under the age of 21. So it is happening. And you have to really have these conversations with your kids so that they feel comfortable having conversations later as an adult, and so that they know how to navigate that whole conversation with a potential partner.
And then I would say, once you are with that potential partner, if this is someone that you are dating or are in a relationship with, being able to name what it is that you enjoy, or being open to exploring that with that partner. And I think that we all kind of begin to know who the person is as we date them or spend time with them, to know when might be a comfortable time to bring up these conversations, to then share with them what you desire. Or is it better that you just show them during sex? Knowing your partner and learning your partner, I think is really, really important. And also knowing that your partner's desires may change over time, and so will yours, and that's okay. That we're continuing to learn each other throughout life or throughout the course of the relationship. If it's a hookup or something quicker, you want to get to the point and just, say what you want at that time. But, if it's a relationship, then you can, it's going to ebb and flow. You're going to enjoy different things. Maybe you get into a different kink that you've not been into, or into, a different way of having sex, and just exploring all of those things with that partner can be fun, and a great way to deepen and strengthen the relationship.
Right. And I think it has to do with levels of trust too, like how you trust your partner and how intimate you are with them mentally and emotionally tends to play itself out physically, and what you really feel comfortable with and how you feel about that person too can make a big difference. And one of the things that I encourage my patients to do is body mapping, and saying, this is a place that I like for you to touch. This is a place I want for you to kiss. Like, it's really, I think it's empowering for people to be able to say what they need and to have those needs met by someone who cares about fulfilling their needs. So I think that being able to name it is really important, and really just kind of letting people know, like, oh, I love this. I love when you touch here, or when you did that. That really was a huge turn on. So just being able to talk about it like adults. We're adults. There's nothing we can't really, discuss. And I think that it's important too to do age appropriate discussions with our kids.
I agree completely. So Dr. Joy, we are nearing the end of the hour. This has been an incredible conversation. I knew that you were the person that I should bring on for my first Practical 30 Live. So thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me for your very first guest. I mean, that's amazing. I think that you do such great work, and I followed you since you were a medical student. And I just really enjoy anytime I get together with you, I enjoy myself. Just such a really wonderful person, very, a brilliant clinician, and just doing so much for the community. And I really love how you are reaching out to Black gay men. I think that that is so important. And just, the LGBTQIA community in general really needs to have the appropriate providers to provide healthcare and to meet their needs where they are, and not to think that certain things are taboo or to be judgmental. We have to really be careful about when we get to judging people, it gets really hard to care for them and to love them. So I'm just so grateful that this is really a conversation that we were able to have together. And I just really wish you really great success with this live production that you're going to be doing and having lots of really special guests. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So why don't you give me some closing thoughts if you have any?
My closing thoughts are really just know your body, get an understanding about how it works, so that when there are issues and problems, you kind of know, okay, well, I need to address this. Be very vocal about what your needs are, not only with your partners, but with your clinician, with your doctor or your healthcare provider, because if you're having a problem, you need to feel confident speaking up, saying so. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with a normal vagina that is producing moisture. I know there was a lot of flack or saying, oh, if you have a lot of vaginal discharge, then you probably, have some sort of infection. That's not necessarily true at all. If you have clear to white discharge that does not have an odor, that's normal. And your vagina is probably healthy. If you do not produce vaginal moisture and you are not postmenopausal, then you have a problem and you should say something about it. So a WAP is what the vagina is supposed to do. And that is not shameful. It's not dirty. It's not nasty. I think that we just need to come to a full appreciation of the beautiful, vibrant creations that we are, and that sex is a natural part of life, and that we should embrace it and make sure that we're doing so safely.
Awesome. And Dr. Joy, when do you release new content, and where can they find that content?
Oh, okay. So you can find me on YouTube at Delivering Joy MD. And I release content every Wednesday and Sunday. So I'm always putting out videos that are on women's interests and women's health. So from women who are younger, and I'm getting ready to start a series for women who are still hot. I call them spicy chicks, who are, going through menopause and having hot flashes and all of that sort of stuff. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And you can follow me on Instagram at Delivering Joy MD, as well as Facebook. And we have a girl gang that you can join, where we have lots of topics of discussion that are all about women's health and women's issues. So you can find me in these streets.
I like that. So as always, you can find me at the Practical MD on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. And on Mondays, I put out new content, the Monday Medical Message. It's a great 5 to 7 minute discussion about a key topic, often that's trending and one that's always important. So you can find me there.
Always good. Make sure you check it out. I watch it every time you put them out.
Oh, I love that. All right. So we're going to end. Until next time, everyone, be well, stay safe, and remember that small changes can make a big impact. Later.
For sure.